All right. We are
We're
here.
alive. We're alive. We're here. We're actually here.
Yeah. Um,
How are you doing, John?
I'm doing okay. The weather is kind of getting better here. It's been a chilly spring,
Yeah.
uh, surprisingly so. Uh,
I love it. I love the chilly weather, although we're coming up onto some hot weather soon, so at least around here next week.
yeah, it's just strange that and it yesterday was gorgeous, but it was cool. Now it's cloudy. I haven't been outside yet, and I haven't even looked at the temperature. But we'll see. It'll happen eventually.
Hmm.
Um,
You mean
I
spring and summer?
haven't been swimming in the lake.
Ooh, yeah, it must be cold.
I'm sh- yeah. 'Cause
That would be
there
cold.
are
That would.
there are there are polar divers here, polar
Oh, I'm
swimmers.
sure.
So it's a thing.
We have folks around here also who will chop ice, the a hole in the ice in the lakes and go and
And
swimming. And
jump in.
that's
Yes.
just not something
It's
I'm really
it's supposed to be
interested in.
good for you.
Well,
So
I guess if you survive it, you're
yeah.
probably in good shape.
Anyway, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Yeah.
Cats keeping away from the birds.
Well, the cats are inside. The cats are indoor cats.
They would
So
like
yeah,
to be out there.
they would love to be outside.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we took them outside once, and they were a little scared of it because it was new for them. It's something that they're not familiar with, although they look at it out the window. But there you are.
It's an interesting phenomenon, actually. There's some Dharma in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, so I threw this idea at you, which
Yeah.
is to have a conversation about space.
Right. The final
Um,
frontier.
exactly. And I mean, it shows its way into the teachings as one of the sixth elements.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, I
Earth,
find it
air, what is it? Earth, air, fire, water, space, and consciousness. Right.
consciousness. Yeah.
Although the last two are rarely included. I mean, it's at least in the early text, it's mostly four. But
Yeah. I mean, it's,
sometimes it's
the
six.
four are more physical,
Mm.
obviously. Although it's interesting because it talks about in that sutta where those other two are added, it talks about the space in the body.
Mm.
Like the space within the ears, the
Mm.
space in the nose, the space in
Mm-hmm.
the mouth. Um, I can't remember if it says things about the space between organs or any of that. I think it's mostly about areas of space in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And then it talks, because it's always internal, external, then it talks about the space around the body.
Mm-hmm.
I find it a useful place of investigation because, our bodies take up space. Everything takes up space.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to the sense doors, sound appears within space. Images are all appearing within the space.
Mm-hmm.
And, we habitually, of course, look at the thing itself and not the space around it.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when we actually shift that? And then in meditation practice itself, there's the space between the in-breath and the out-breath.
Mm.
There's the space between thoughts. There's the space between other sensations. There's, so it has a useful, to some degree, it's even a useful, what's the word? It's a way of thinking of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
The space of awareness is what everything arises within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
and another thing that on that same note, another way of looking at it would be when it comes to, for instance, a picture or a painting, a photograph has to do with foreground and background,
yeah,
and awareness, is like a spotlight that's looking at certain elements of what surrounds us, And there's also this other stuff that's around us that our awareness is not focused on. We may be aware of it as
Yeah.
background noise, but we're not as aware of it as the thing we're focused on. And of course, if we're absorbed in that one thing, then we're not aware of anything else at all.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a really great artist who in fact, I have one of her photographs on the wall back there, who she's known for taking photographs that are of backgrounds, everything out of, in out of focus, as though it were the background of a photograph. And a lot of her photographs are absolutely beautiful because of that. I mean, because she's sort of looking at the stuff that, or at least that was one of the things she started by doing, was to take photographs of the things that we consider to be backgrounds,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
and notice that they're beautiful in themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and so, I mean, I often, well, also, it also has an impact on perception.
Mm.
And, I may have talked about this when we talked about perception, but in the MBSR curriculum, um, the first week, there's this assignment to figure out the 9 dots puzzle. And the 9 dots, for those of you that are not familiar with it, the 9 dots are, placed in what appear like as a square. So it's, 3, 3, and 3, and then 3, 4 rows of 3, 4 columns of 3. And you're supposed to connect them, connect the dots with 4 lines. You can cross lines, but you can't retrace. And, generally people try to do it all in that box. It's the perception of the 9 dots, because they're, they're 3 rows and 3 columns, equally spaced, as opposed to the space around the 9 dots, so it's like, oh, and, so we don't, or we'll, I remember once my teacher, just drew a line on a piece of paper and said, what do you see? Oh, I see a line. Yeah, but there's the line and the white paper around. It's that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
that's foreground, background,
Mm-hmm.
and it can definitely have an impact on how we perceive things.
Mm-hmm. Or
And
conceptualize things too.
yeah, say it again.
Or
Conceptualize things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think in practice, it can be really helpful. And that space, as an example, that space between the in-breath and the out-breath, excuse me, is often the space that thoughts arise within.
Mm.
I mean, early on in my practice, I had this kind of image in the mind that it was like what's that game where things keep popping up in the holes?
Yeah, whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole, right? It's like that space was the whack-a-mole space that the thoughts arrived in, arose in, and then with the out breath, and so your awareness would be on the in breath, and then there's that gap, and all sorts of stuff arises, and then there's the out breath.
Well, you're pretty lucky if you can only get it happening at the
Yeah.
at the intersection. It happens all the time for me.
Yeah, and so it was like, oh, all right. So you give it more space, and it'll take it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, and then there's the other language that's often used when it comes to thought, which is the easiest, for me anyway, the most effective way of at least lowering the volume on thinking is to give it as much space as it needs. So it's like a wild horse. You just let it run itself out. And
Now, how do you do that? That's an interesting way to do it. But it seems to me that if I were to do that, I would I would just sit there and my mind would spin for ages.
What do you do now?
Well, I try to be aware of when that's happening and bring it back to the breath or whatever my focus is going to be.
Yeah.
But if I were just to say let it run, I wouldn't do that.
Well, it doesn't say let it run and get involved with the running. it's just letting it run and sort of seeing it fade away.
Ah, so you can stand outside of it and watch it.
Yeah,
If you can do that, yeah,
yeah.
okay, yeah, I can see
And,
that.
and so, I mean, because all these thoughts are just arising within awareness, within
Hmm.
that space of awareness,
Right. Hmm.
and we talk about this boundless space, and
Hmm.
that's the space.
Hmm.
And so,
So you're not. It's letting the thoughts run as though you're watching a horse in the distance, rather than letting
exactly. Yeah.
rather than you being the
Yeah.
horse.
Oh, yeah, yeah, right. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, you're definitely not the horse. Or any horses, actually,
Yeah,
'cause,
horses. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can't train a horse by putting it in a small place, you know.
Yeah.
And so you give it the space it needs, and then it calms down eventually. So, and if you want to get up and chase it, well, then we know what happens.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very useful image.
Hmm.
And even, when we talk about the boundless abodes of the Brahmaviharas,
Hmm.
that unconditional love is filling space.
Hmm. All
It's,
the directions. Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and so it plays a pretty big role in some of the teachings. I mean, I'm just thinking of that in terms of in terms of the Brahmaviharas and the image of the hornblower,
Hmm.
on top of the mountain, just sort of spreading the sound
To each they say
direction.
quarter, but it's each direction, six directions,
Right.
4 and then up and down. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, what's it filling?
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
um, yeah. So I highly, I also do well. We were sort of talking about this before, but when you think about music,
Mm.
the silence is the music is in the space of the silence.
Hmm.
In a sense, it's the rests, in a sense, or the pause between notes, that is actually creating the music as much as anything.
Or the distance of the note, whether it's a short note or a long
Yeah,
note, is
exactly.
taking up
Yeah, right.
space and time. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
space and yeah, time and space or whatever.
Time and space, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And think about the 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 image of our lives in terms of time and space,
Mm.
as opposed to timelessness, which is, sort of unbounded space with, I don't know, we can get carried away with this, of course, but, that, as you said, the final frontier, it's like, oh, and there's also, speaking of that, there's, and I think you've seen this, that fascinating YouTube thing that was done. Well, it wasn't a YouTube thing when it was done, but YouTube didn't exist. But the whole thing about the power of 10,
Oh, I love that. Oh my God,
right?
that's by Charles and Ray Eames. Yes,
And,
Powers of 10. Hmm. In
and
Chicago.
it starts in Chicago, right? And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
it just like goes up and up into space.
Hmm.
But then when it comes back around and goes down into,
Hmm.
into the body, into negative power of 10,
Hmm.
right? And then
Yep.
you see that the inside of the body, the space inside the body is not much different than the space out
Yep.
at 10 times versus minus 10.
Yep.
And, that's the space that I think the Buddha was referring to when also when, he didn't obviously realize, what was in there, but, or maybe they did. They certainly saw the corpses, but, yeah.
No, that to me is one of the most profound pieces of video that I've ever seen. That is, if any of our listeners have not seen Powers of 10, I think it's available on YouTube in the sense
Oh, yeah,
that
it
you
is.
can you can see it, because it's sort of it's an old piece. It's not long. It's only
No.
maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes long,
Yeah.
but it's mind blowing. It really is, and it's they did it. They did their Charles and Ray Eames are two of the most wonderful designers.
Oh, it's that Eames.
Yeah,
I didn't realize
Charles and
that.
Ray Eames. Yep.
We had
They're
one of those Eames chairs.
yeah. I mean, they're fantastic designers, but also filmmakers and teachers. And this is this is a great, and it is in its own way kind of dharmic. You know,
Oh
it's
yeah.
giving you a sense of the scale of things, both as you say, the space around us, the size of everything, but also the space inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a yeah, I would highly recommend people to see it.
I think I actually used it in the class on the elements when
You
it
might
came
have,
to
yeah.
space. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think that, you know, this, so the body is in space, but the body also has this proprioceptive capacity
Yeah.
that, if it's in full force, obviously knows where it is in space. And, you know, it's not like, so, it's not something we think about usually, right? I mean, I know when my hand is going to hit the wall, but I don't have to look at the wall, or I know the hand goes for the coffee cup, you know, and doesn't hit it. And that proprioceptive nature that informs us where we are in space at any given time, you know, that really, to some degree, I mean, it really does say, well, what, where is the self that's doing that, right? And because we don't think about that. I mean, we might, if we bump into something, wonder what happened, right?
Right.
But and you know, one of the things that drives me crazy about driving in cities is that most, like, people who have these ridiculous SUVs, they have no concept of how much space they take up or don't.
Yeah.
And I've been behind people who like think they can't get through something when you see it and there's plenty of space on each side.
They don't want to scrape their car. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, or hit their mirrors or something, you know, but if they had a smaller car, it wouldn't be such an issue for them. But
Well, it's like the people in the subway with backpacks on, which
yes, of
I
course,
try not to be that person.
yeah,
I've been that person maybe once or twice, but I try not to be that
right,
person. You know,
oh,
you turn around and you're hitting six people with your backpack because you
right,
don't have the proprioception of realizing that your back has got this thing that's a foot bit, you know, a foot larger
right.
than you
That's
are.
right. That's right. But it's also, it's you know, now that we're talking about this, it's like when I was in India last year, like the Indians, you know, in terms of personal space, right? They don't.
You
You'll
have
be
less
standing in
personal
line.
space. Yeah.
You'll be standing in line, and the person behind you will be like right on your back, because that's just how they.
Cultural. Yeah.
It's a cultural thing, and you know, we want to claim our space, and you know, some of us need more personal space than others, and how do we work with that, and what's actually creating that feeling
Yeah.
of the need?
Another thing
And
that happens on subways is that you know you have this forced lack of personal space a lot of the
yeah,
time because you know
well, wait,
rush
I know you
hour.
guys are thinking about going to Japan. Wait till you like get on, if you take
I know,
the
I know.
subway in the crowded in rush hour,
Yeah.
they have people there pushing people in, you know.
Yep.
And the first time I experienced that, it was like, oh God, this thing better not break down.
Yeah.
But so that, you know, that plays into all of this. And there was something else that just came related to that. It's gone. Maybe it'll come back later. But you know, so it's I just think that reflecting on space as an element
Mm.
in our lives in all its ways can be really uh, can be, for me it was actually quite helpful.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, it gives you an idea of size and scale that's hard to, I think, hard to conceptualize any other way than as that kind of space.
yeah.
Um,
And also just this, we talk about this spaciousness of awareness,
hmm.
and and often in guidance I'll say something like, be aware of the difference between knowing the spaciousness of awareness and spacing out.
Ah, yeah, that's a good distinction.
Yeah.
Sure. Hmm.
Because when we know, when we're aware of awareness,
Hmm.
there's that knowing, mindfulness of knowing awareness.
Hmm.
When we're spacing out, we have no idea where we are
Right.
because the mind is just completely wandering,
Hmm.
um, with no knowledge that it's wandering until you wake out of the wandering,
Hmm.
and so, or something brings you out of the wandering. So that also is a uh, helpful lesson to keep in mind, or helpful teaching to
Yeah.
keep in mind. Yeah.
I mean, I think that the conceptualizing things in terms of space, time, and volume, or whatever we're going to say, time
Right.
and perception, in particular visual perception, in terms of space, I think helps. I mean, I think it helps to refine that idea of a foreground and a background, of a thing that we're paying attention to
Yeah.
and a thing that we're not paying attention to, of, as you say, um, uh, the rests in music, or the length of a note rather than just the existence of a note.
Hmm.
Um, all of those things are really important, and it's true that if we don't think in terms of space, if we just think in terms of, let's say, the other elements, um, uh, earth, air, fire, water, let's just say, or chemical elements,
Yeah.
then we tend to focus on the things that, the actual physical objects, right? Or we're going to say the air around us, as an element, um, and not really focus on it as sort of a negative space, a thing that we don't pay attention to.
Right.
Um, I mean, I
But
think it can help. It can help to sort of give us a broader conception of what's around us.
and I mean, just thinking about things, material things,
Mm.
right? And just this notion that everything is a combination of various elements and atoms, atoms and molecules,
Mm-hmm.
which are in motion in some way or another, filling that space which creates the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly that's the case with us as beings, living beings. These elements have come together in a particular way within a space that is manifest as this body and the space within this body. And it's like, oh, okay. And there's a certain porousness to this body,
Mm.
that we don't always think about. It pores in the skin, in which air flows to some degree and moisture flows in and out. And, it's all a kind of constant motion in a sense
Mm-hmm.
within space. And so there's so many ways of kind of uh, just playing with it, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, just bringing it into practice one way or the other. Um,
Yeah,
and
and
just,
it's also interesting just to think about the difference between the kind of meditation you're talking about, where it's a meditation directed at the scale of things, at, as you were saying, about metta, about
boundless.
broadcasting
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
radiating that uh, that feeling into all parts of space, as opposed to samadhi meditation, which at least traditionally is understood as as directing your meditation at one thing in particular to the exclusion of everything else. And of course, then you use that one thing to be everything for you. I mean, that becomes your field of awareness. But it's just that one narrow part of awareness becomes everything for you for that time.
Right. And so when the mind is in samadhi, and there's an awareness of that, there's an awareness of that space of mind, right? And I mean, that's how I experience it. It's not my mind; it's just mind, and the space of that mind, in which everything is arising, and the moment I recognize it as me doing it, then it's just poof, in a sense, then it just comes back to this thing I call me. And so, so that single pointedness becomes this,
the space in which,
which is kind of an amazing kind of process in itself. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So, friends, pay attention to that space. Attend to the space.
Space and time. Space time. Yes.
Or, what's the phrase? Mind the gap.
Mind the gap. As they say in London.
Yeah, because it's like in that gap where things can happen.
You can lose your foot.
Exactly. Exactly. Anyway, cool.
Yeah.
So I will see you next week, which maybe we can say now will be at least your last. We're going to be going into a change of. There'll be a transition period here. We're not sure where it's transitioning, but Doug is retiring, or
my wife is retiring, and so
taking a sabbatical, or so give me some space to sort of reconfigure Diggin the Dharma, and but next week will be Doug's last appearance for a while. He'll be a guest host, probably more than he thinks, but anyway, we will keep you posted on that as things evolve. So, and until then, I'll see you next Friday, and we will hope to see all of you who are listening and seeing, and whatever you're doing, however you're experiencing the space we fill. Okay, so keep digging the Dharma.
Keep digging that Dharma.
Okay, take care.
Take care, yeah.